Hello everybody, good day to you, happy Wednesday. Today we're going to just talk about some different neck postures and some corrective exercises that can help offset these postures. I would say if you are noticing that you have some of these things, give it a try and see if they help you out. And if you are currently feeling a lot of pain and you've been dealing with neck pain, I would check it out with a doctor for sure. But if you just notice that you're developing one of these postures, or maybe you spend a lot of time working on a device throughout your day, maybe you end up with like a little bit of like achiness, see if one of these drills or exercises will help you out with that. But without further ado, let's go ahead and dive into some of these. So we have two very common ones that we see with modern technology. We end up with different things with the computer. So this first one is going to be computer neck, or upper cross syndrome, as some people will refer to it. And basically what happens with that is we get this forward posture when we're working on the computer, and then we have the screen out in front. So like we're down here working with our hands on the keyboard, and then the screen's up here. So it brings us forward to help us kind of access these things a little easier. And when that happens, it brings my spine here in the middle of my back. It's going to round me. It's going to round forward here, but then it's also bending the neck, right? So that neck bend and that rounded posture, I'm getting tighter through the chest. All this musculature up front is getting tighter. And then some of the stuff in the neck, because of this extension position here, is not pulling down. So this stuff is actually not as active when we have that posture. And then this stuff in the back, it's all getting kind of bunched up. So you're getting a little bit too much curvature back here to accommodate that like look at the screen position. And then some other things that come along with that is going to be chest tightness. A lot of times you're going to have the shoulders kind of rounding forward with that. And then we end up with these muscles in the back. They're not doing as much work. So they're not holding me upright, right? So what we want to do is just get these things to kind of balance out, start working better with each other. And for this one, actually, I like to start off with you getting a little bit more open through the middle of the back, getting that to relax some. A lot of times, once we get a little taller through the middle of the back, that's going to help us get the crown of the head a little taller as well. We think about like the head is going to weigh anywhere from like 10 to 12 pounds. And every inch that it shifts forward, it's going to add, another 10 to 12 pounds of force. So, when you're here, it's already adding that, right? And then we start to drift more and more forward, and then that weight is going to end up coming down into the middle of the back and go into the lower back. We could pick up tension in like the bottom of the neck down here, right above the shoulder. We don't always get to decide where that like stress goes, but we do know that if we could work on that alignment, it's going to help take some of that stress off. So what I like to do is start off with, we'll revisit this for the other two things, but we'll start off with a little foam rolling through the middle of the back. And we'll start with this foam roller right in the middle of the back here. And then I like to go with the hands behind the head just to support the neck. And then we're going to tip back this way. And I'm thinking about drawing my head back into my hands and drawing my chin down. So this is already going to help me start to activate some of these neck muscles in the front, those deep neck flexors. And then we're also going to get a little length out of the top of those neck extensors, stretching that out as we pull back into this position. And then I'll work a little bit of this action and just kind of bending, extending through the middle of the back, and then working that head posture, that neck posture. Getting that to relax is going to be a big part of it. Getting some of that tissue to ease up. And then I like to use, Theracane's great. You could use, again, like a little massage ball will work too. And we can get the chest to relax too. So we're just going to start in the chest here. You can kind of work around with your hand, or you can take a Theracane and you can just press into that. I want to let this arm relax so this shoulder can just get the release and not have to do any work. If I'm pressing in with this hand, I'm going to be using this shoulder. So I just want to let that shoulder relax and kind of dig in, see if you find anything tender here. And then we just go ahead and stand nice and tall and just work some range of motion and just get that to kind of stretch from where I'm pinching down. And then steady breathing here. And one thing you should note about this is, like, when we're dealing with this, we want to get our core going pretty well. So breathing exercise here might really help just to bring some awareness to our core, get that intra-abdominal pressure going. And we'll get more into intra-abdominal pressure next week, but it's a really important thing. So getting that inhale in the nose, a little expansion in the belly, and then exhale, have that all kind of come back in. And using that breathing mechanism to help us stabilize our spine is going to help us with stability of the spine, but it's also going to help us get the tissue to relax using the breath to get that to relax. So it's going to be a really important one to get ourselves going using the core. And then after we go through our relaxation of the middle of the back, or that extension in the middle of the back, and then relaxing the pecs, we're going to want to stretch a little bit through here. You can use Theracane and press into some of this tissue that pulls the head back. So I'm going to put that right into the shoulder, top of the shoulder, and the base of the neck. And then I'm going to go ahead and work some flexion down first. Just straight on down. And then I might get a little bit of rotation here as well. Flexing down, pulling the chin towards the shoulder, or go nose to armpit is a way to think about that. And get that range of motion going. We can do both sides. And just digging through, see if you find anything tender. I wouldn't dig too hard. And again, we'll go ahead and let that same side arm relax. So I'm not going to work this shoulder over here. I'm just going to let that ease up and work through some of that range there. Going with rotation, then we go straight down. Remember, we're trying to use these muscles, these deep flexors here. We want to use them to pull the chin to the chest. And that's going to activate the chin. Remember, these muscles are not as engaged because we have this position going on here. And this stuff back here is getting all jammed up. So we're going to work on getting activation in here, getting this tissue to just relax a little bit and ease up. And then the combination of two is just going to help us out with that. Once we get that to relax, I like to do a couple of activations for the neck. You can do these standing, or you can do these seated. Seated is sometimes easier for people to feel. And so what we'll do is we're going to try to sit tall and then hinge at the hips. So we're hinging at the hips, and then I'm going to use my fists or my hands to resist my head. So I'm going to try to pull my chin to chest, and I'm trying to really engage these muscles down. And while I'm doing this, I can feel those muscles in the front of the neck really engaging. And then I can also feel a little stretch going on. So I'm not real tight here today, but if you're feeling tight in here and you go into this and you're pressing into your hands, you'll feel a real good stretch happening as you're activating these muscles. And like 3 sets of 10 seconds is a real good place to feel that and get that muscle really activated. And then another one I like to do, using that chin down the chest mechanism, we're just going to hold a little tension down. So I don't want to be all the way down here. We already did that exercise. We're going to do a little bit of neck retraction, so pulling the head straight back. And we're going to have a little co-contraction happening here. So these deep muscles in the front of the neck are going to be pulling the chin down. And simultaneously, the head is going to be pulled straight back. And almost like you're imagining your jaw just being pulled straight back. And then what we can do is we can add a little bit of resistance to this. You can take your hands, put them behind your head, and now we're going to pull the chin down just a little bit and then pull the head straight back into the hands and create some tension in both the base of the neck here, the back of the neck, and in the front of the neck to pull the chin down. So we're engaging here, we're also engaging here. Remember, we were here, and now we're being more upright, so the head comes down a little bit and it pulls back at the same time. And then we're also trying to be nice and tall through the core and the middle of the back. So we're holding that crown as high as we can and engaging from the middle of the back. And we talked about some things to do to help with this rounded posture earlier in another video. And if you're struggling with the rounded posture, that's going to be a key to getting this position better, because as soon as I go here, I automatically start to fall into the rest of those positions through the neck. So I personally like to think that it all really happens through this midsection, and then what happens through, like, the neck is going to be a result of that, and we want to really get to the root of it, right? So if we're just doing the neck things, it might make us feel a little bit better, but it might not get to the heart and soul of the problem, and we want to get to that. We want to get to the root and start to put that into our training so we can get away from those issues. And then we have we can integrate that in with any other exercise too, by the way. We can go ahead and, once you go through those correctives, go through some rows, go through some squats, any exercise that's going to challenge the whole body, and using that posture, right? We're going to continue to keep the chin tucked and just a little bit pulled back so you can stack your spine. One way to measure is you can look at your ear, and then you can kind of just see if it's right over top of your shoulder. So if we're rounded here and we're in this position, it's not going to be in alignment. Shoulders a little bit rounded forward, middle of the back's rounded. But if I can stand up tall, keeping a nice long spine, now my shoulder's back in a better position, my ear's over top of my shoulder, and there's a lot of great things that are going to come along with that, mobility-wise, freedom-wise. Like when we're here, can't get my hand overhead. As soon as I'm taller, I can get my hand over my head. So there's just little things that really come along with that. But we want to make sure that we address some of these things, because the tissue is going to constrict and form to the shape that you spend the most time in. So we want to be mindful of it, and then do some of these little soft tissue exercises to relax some of that stuff that's all bunched up, and then just activate the stuff that's not, and then just take that back to your regular training. And then another common one we want to talk about is going to be text neck. And I'll pull out my phone and just show you. It happens to everybody, but we're like totally on our phones a lot. Everybody is. And then we end up in this position. And the shoulder position, it has something to do with it. Sometimes I notice people kind of bunch up a little bit, and the upper traps get a little bit more engaged from this. But what I notice the most with this is this tissue up front now is really short, and we start to lose the curvature back here. So not getting the same curvature as this one up here, right? It's totally different in how it affects the neck. All this stuff back here starts to get a little bit more lengthened out. Sometimes the shoulders will pop up, but we definitely notice like this happens, right? We get a lot of tension in the front of the neck. These muscles, the deep flexors now are overactive. So kind of the opposite of this, where these muscles in the front aren't doing as much work. I don't notice this as much in like you might see it affect the chest sometimes. A lot of times people are also on the computer and doing stuff, so they might have some of the text neck happening, but what we're really thinking about is this posture here. And the first thing, before we even start doing like correctives for it, is like I like to think about just propping this phone up higher. So I'm going to use my hand, put it underneath my elbow here, and now straight across. So the position is not going to be the same, so I can be in a little bit more upright position. I can still be on my phone doing my thing. A lot of us do work on our phones too, so it's not like we're getting rid of this stuff, but we got to find ways to adapt it into our regular life. Things I like to do for this, we can do some soft tissue work with our hands. We can kind of find the collarbone and just work along this muscle here. A lot of times this muscle is going to be a little bit engaged. You get the scalenes, the muscles in the front. So this one down here, these muscles in here, they're going to attach to like the rib, the first and second rib, the group of scalene muscles. And then we have the SEM. That muscle connects from like behind the ear, and then that runs in front. So sometimes, especially when we get some like lateral flexion stuff, so like say if you're like on your phone and like for some reason like you come down and one side kind of pulls closer to the other, I think it might shorten out over there. You probably are going to notice more with like the scalenes, these muscles on the side. They attach the rib to like the second vertebrae on your neck, and they're going to have more influence here, I think, in the flexion here. So getting these to relax, you can massage with your hands some, and then we want to work on pulling back this way, giving yourself a little bit of exposure to the extension position, right? So while we're doing that, we're stretching these muscles out, but we're going to be engaging these muscles in the back. And remember, this text neck position, a lot of times spend so much time in here that this curvature just completely goes away. And sometimes folks will try to go through a chin tuck, and they'll go into a chin tuck and they just can't get their head all the way back. And we should have some of this natural curvature going on, and sometimes we just can't experience it because of how much time we spend in that position. So what we'll go ahead and do after we get the neck relaxed a little bit, we'll do some positional isometrics for neck extension. We did this active stretch. Maybe we'll go ahead and just pull into our hands. Tip the head back, pull into the hands, and just try to engage those muscles. And you'll probably feel a little stretch here. If you notice that you really don't have much of a curve in your neck, you'll definitely feel a little stretch there. And you'll feel these muscles in the back of your neck starting to kick on, and they're going to start picking up tension. And that's good. And what we'll want to do with that after we get these muscles engaged is we can go through our regular chin tuck. You probably won't have to think too much about pulling your chin down because those muscles like to do that. But you can just work on pulling your head back, and you can see if you get any of that. If you're still coming back and you're still ending up without as much curvature, you can practice just pulling back, right? And using a mirror or a camera is great because you can see yourself. You can see if this is getting any more curvature, or you're still pretty rigid there. And then once you can identify that feeling, we want to take that back into your regular training and go ahead and work on doing some strength training exercises. A lot of times people will do like a row and they'll be here. These people already are down, chin's already tucked down. Or like, for instance, we'll do a plank and show you what they may end up looking like. If you film yourself when you're working out, you're doing a plank here, and a lot of times their head's going to be dropped towards the floor, and they're not necessarily not able to, but they're not aware of the fact that their head is so far down towards the ground. And actually going through a plank or doing like the bird dog where you reach your opposites out, your opposite arm and leg from the all fours position. Like they're good exercises to help challenge that neck retraction and keeping that nice and long. And it's going to engage the back of the neck and work that in with the core. And this is the same thing we talked about earlier. Getting the core involved in this is definitely going to help out. Working on that breathing exercise. You could go through just sitting in a good posture. You can do this standing or seated and just focus on big inhale through the nose, exhale through the mouth, getting some good tension in here. And maybe just doing a 5x5, doing a 5-second inhale and 5-second exhale and doing that 5 times. And just working on position of the neck, feeling the belly doing its job, the diaphragm really doing its job as it pulls down and expands the belly and the rib cage. And using that tension in the core, using the breath to help you just bring a little bit more awareness to your position. And then I wanted to talk about one more thing, and this is common. It's probably more common than some people might think, but if you look around, you may just notice it, and you might notice it within yourself. I certainly have noticed it within myself in different times. I still work on it, and it's something that I probably will work on for a good deal of time. And it's not like I spend a lot of time at any given time on it, but like a good deal of time, I mean in terms of like a lifetime. So what we have, and this is going to have to do with like lateral flexion. So for me, it's easy to shift this way. It's really easy to shift and pull my head this way. And this side, not so much. I kind of have to rock my body to do it. 2 things that come along with this that I think about is going to be the core, right? Because if I'm shifted this way, I might be not holding on as much over here. If I could pull this down at my ribs, work my belly more to help align my spine from the center, I might get rid of some of that shift. And then also just like if your computer is set up, right? Like if I'm working on a computer, say my computer's over here and I have maybe something in front of me that I also need to have, and I'm like turning my head or I'm like shifting my head to this side, right? This tissue over here is going to be pulling, right? And I'm going to be shifting my head over to that direction to help accommodate what I'm trying to do. But what happens is this is going to shorten this out. And it should be noted that these are 2 different muscles. So we did say this earlier, but these are going to be the scalenes on here. And this is going to be the SEM or the sternocleidomastoid. And that's more of like a rotator, turns the head. And this is going to do some lateral flexion. So you can't really see it too well in this picture. But if you look close, you can see that the neck is a little bit bent. And I did that to try to show that these muscles on this side are a little bit tight. And then like right in here is where the curve happens. And that's pulling down towards the rib here. And then you see there's just a little tiny bow on this side. And that's going to be this muscle pulling down. So if you can imagine, there would be a muscle right along this first rib here, running up to this like ear, if you will, behind the ear there, running across here. And they're going to be the SCM on that side. And then you would have the same thing running from here down. That would be your scalenes on the other side. So you have pairs of these muscles on both sides. And, you know, if you notice yourself shifting, you know, and you feel like I'm always tight on this side, right? Like this side's always picking up tension in my head. And I look in the mirror, it kind of looks like it's off. Or maybe you see a picture of yourself and you can see it's off. Or maybe when you're talking on your Zooms and you're doing like a business meeting, you notice yourself kind of just like when you talk and maybe your head turns one way or maybe your head pulls one direction. You can do some stuff to help offset that. And one of the things I like to do is we'll go through some of this massage work. We'll definitely do some of the breath work. And then we can also do some things with lateral flexion. We can do some positional isometrics first. So we can do this standing or seated. Again, I think seated is a little easier for people to feel. But it's certainly not impossible to do from a standing position. But again, let's see if we can get ourselves nice and centered. I'd start with some breathing. Just go ahead and get that going. And once you have gotten your breathing going, you can feel some core tension built up. Then what you can do is just start by doing a little positional isometric. So I'm going to literally try to push my head this direction. I'm going to resist, with my hand, and I'm going to just press in and just hold in tension here. And maybe go 3 sets of 10 seconds. So my left side likes to pull over more. Sometimes it's harder to feel my right side. And just driving into my hand is going to help me contract this muscle. And 3 sets of 10 seconds is good. And then what you can do is take this over here. Now this is going to be lengthened, right? And I can grab with this hand now, sitting tall, still maintaining that breathing, and I'm going to just try to gently resist, not a whole lot. And I'm going to pull this direction. Big squeeze now. And now that I've done the positional isometric, I can feel that pretty good. And then I can do repetitions of this. Still focusing on the breathing, still trying to keep my core engaged and sitting tall, and having this all happen through the neck and engaging those muscles. It's just going to help me balance this out, right? And I don't even have to do as much stretching this way to accommodate that because I'm contracting this muscle over here. And you can do some stretching, you do the soft tissue stuff to get that to relax, but the stronger this tissue is on this side, the more centered I can hold it, the more centered I can set things up for myself, the easier it will be to feel that. And then you can do other stuff to like help balance that out with your soft tissue or getting a massage. But if you're always going back to the same position, you're always working, and you work on a computer and your head's turned this way, and then you turn back this way, and you turn back this way, and you only turn your head to the left all the time, this is going to make this tighter, And it's an important thing to kind of just think about, right? Making yourself aware of that. It helps us balance that out, so we don't pull and favor one side as much as the other, and just trying to get them to work a little bit better together. Because like when you want to turn your head this way, or you want to turn your head this way, say this side is tight, right? And this is another good stretch. Say this side is tight because you turn your head to the left a lot. Turning your head to the right is going to be tough, right? So we can practice turning to the right. You can hold on to some of that tissue on the side, just gently pressing into it with your fingers, and then just working on some rotation and rotating the other way. And then you could go back to the one with the cane, putting that right on the top of the shoulder and working on rotating down on that diagonal rotation, getting that tissue to relax. So like if this is all tight on here and running back here, then we want to get the other stuff to work, get this stuff to relax, and try to balance it out. And then I like to just run through some neck circles. You can maybe tuck your hands out back and just head down, and then just roll around and just see where you find tight spots. See if you find any spots in here that cause any kind of like friction, or like maybe a little bit of like crackling happening, not with pain. If you have something with pain, again, it's good to go see like a specialist. A spine specialist would be great to see if you're getting that. But if it's just coming from like your seated posture, and you notice that you're picking up issues with like this side's tight because I'm shifting, well, if you can mentally think about that, you can address that with just your position and some quick exercises. You can change the way you move, and it's really starts with being mindful and breathing. Just getting the core involved is going to be a big part of it. One other thing that I find is useful when we get these neck things going on, a lot of times we're not anchoring our shoulders onto our thoracic spine or our rib cage area, and I like to just take that back to some of the shoulder exercises we were doing before. We could go with the foam roller, reach up the wall, Doing that one gets the serratus involved. That's going to help us get the shoulder blade anchored more into the ribs. And it's a real quick exercise. You can do it with the foam roller, going up the wall, press it in, and just trying to feel the ribs. And this is a good place to keep that chin tucked and pulling the face straight back. So you get that nice co-contraction happening. Get those ribs involved. And the serratus muscle, a lot of times, it's inactive with people who have neck things going on. And once they get this shoulder more stabilized off the ribs, it makes a lot of difference. You can go through some like scaption here, working with your arm and a band, just pulling across and up. This is going to get the middle of the back going. Again, it's going to help get that serratus muscle going, that rib muscle. This is a great one to do to get the shoulder warmed up, and we can feel our core working with that one, and putting more of this tension back to the center, and that's going to help alleviate a lot of that tension off of the neck. But in reality, it all kind of starts with the mindfulness of it, right? Noticing it and seeing what you can do to fix it, you know, and it takes practice for sure. But I can tell you, for myself personally, my left side used to get really tight. It doesn't do that as much. I mean, occasionally I'll notice it. That would be the side, if any side of my neck would get tight, it will be my left side. And I am left-handed, so I use my left shoulder a lot more. And, you know, what I notice when I get my shoulder feeling better, it's more engaged through the ribs, it's more engaged in the middle of the back. My neck, a lot of times, it doesn't need as much stuff either. Like, it doesn't need as much of these drills, twisting and turning. It definitely is nice. It feels good. But I usually will start with the shoulder, getting that feeling better, making it all work the way I like it to. And then once I do that, I might do a couple of the neck things to get that back in alignment and everything working together, because I really believe in the integration of getting everything working as one unit and not just isolating things. But that's the thing, like getting everything back to one unit, working together with the core, and a lot of times that is it. And it doesn't take a long time. It just takes a little practice, a little mindfulness, and just some good solid breathing. I really think that helps a lot too. But that is what I have for today. Next week we're going to go into diaphragmatic breathing. This is going to be a great one to kind of tie everything together, because it all is starting in the motor house, this core area, and you know that's going to affect the hips, how we hold the core. It's going to affect the shoulders and the neck, how we hold the core. And you really have to consider the diaphragm when it gets into some of those things with the breathing. Sometimes we have neck breathers who, you know, they breathe more up here, and they're lifting their shoulders to make room for their lungs, and that doesn't get us the same core activation from our diaphragm as if it were to pull down. So I want to take the time to dive into that next week, and I think that'll be really useful. If you have any questions on this, go ahead and drop them in the comment box below, and I will do my best to answer those for you. Thank you all for your time, and I will see you next week. Have a good day.